Hey family, welcome to We All Need Each Other, the podcast from Transformation Ministry. Let me tell you some facts. Each one of us has unique ways of thinking, gifts, talents, and experiences. Each one of us was made in the image of God. Although those things are very real and very true, it is also true that we reflect the image of God very differently. When we come together with our differences and our uniqueness, we can help each other. We can help each other understand different perspectives and broaden our own perspectives. We can help each other grow and learn and understand the beauty of God and also the complexity of this world. That's why we wanted to bring you this podcast. In this podcast, we're going to get real. We're going to bring in guests that talk about things like faith, race, politics, relationships, ministry, and justice. With all that being said, I just want to say thank you for being here. And thank you for joining us on We All Need Each Other.
Well, thanks for doing this, man. Thanks for joining me for this conversation. This is a topic that I think is really important, that it's sort of a newer emerging topic, at least for me, as I think about discipleship. So you and I have talked about social media a lot over text and different conversations. So I think you're
over social media.
Over social media, mostly. But no, I think you're a good source, because I know that you're thinking about this too. You're not just going free for all on social media. You're really thinking about what it means to engage well and all of that. So why don't you introduce yourself, where you're from, what your work is, and anything else you think is valuable information.
Sure. My name is Ryan Flemming. I'm originally from Goshen area, and 21 years ago moved to Gary, Indiana, where I pastor currently, and am a husband and have 2 kids, teenagers. That's why I'm bald and graying and starting to wrinkle. They're great. And yes, so I enjoy social media. Depending, I go through seasons with that. And certain platforms I like more than others.
So talk about that. What platforms are you on? And then give me like a rough, if you could estimate, like which ones you spend the most time on, like percentage wise. So here, I'll go first. I'll give you time to think about it. So I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Instagram I spend the least time on. Facebook is probably next, and then Twitter is the most. So I would say probably 50% of my social media time is on Twitter, and then maybe a little bit more Facebook than Instagram. So that's kind of where I land. How about you?
Yeah, it would be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I don't know, is YouTube considered that? That's kind of a different type platform. And then I've got like like WhatsApp. That's like personal conversations I'm having with, namely, a spiritual pops in Jamaica, Courtney Richards. So we engage that way. And there's a couple other like group text things that I'm in, but I see those as kind of separate. So Twitter by far, probably I would say, man, at least 75% is Twitter. Facebook, if we didn't do stuff with the church, I probably wouldn't even be on Facebook anymore. I might just leave it open, but yeah. And Instagram, I'm on there more than Facebook. So, maybe 15% IG and 10% Facebook.
Mhm.
And two, some of Instagram is, there's one area where I've put a page together for gardening stuff that I do. I run the church's Instagram thing, and then my personal one. So that takes up some of the time that's there.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been spending a little bit more time on Instagram too, because we've been trying to work to boost our presence a little bit for Transformation Ministries, and I'm in charge of that. So that takes a little bit more time, and Facebook as well. So why? Okay, let's get into some of the reasons behind why is Twitter your number one, and why is it take up so much of that time, and then why would you be willing to say goodbye to Facebook if it wasn't for the church?
Um, well, it didn't start out that way. I think Facebook's been around, I think, longer than those other platforms. But Facebook, to me, just got overloaded with people who are either like shamelessly self-promoting, especially back maybe 2 to 5 years ago when I was DJing a lot more. People would tag me on all kinds of stuff that got exhausting. Since 2015, 16, with the election stuff and all the drama surrounding that, um, that got exhausting to see people's fights on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm honest, really some people that I looked up to or had a level of respect for, that some was just shattered by what they were posting or what they would repost. And by and large, like now I won't scroll. I'm scared to scroll for the fact of getting sucked into the hole of the rabbit trail of threads. There's certain people that I'll get notified for, and I pay attention to some of what they'll say on their profile. They'll have some good stuff to say. You're one of them. But yeah, that's what's there. Instagram, for me, it on the personal side, it gets hard to keep up. Like there's a lot of maintenance. For me, I'm thinking, okay, what post looks good? I want to make the image be something that someone will want to see or convey something. And then I'm thinking, okay, what hashtags do I need to put on there so that it gets into whatever algorithm and all that fun stuff. So that takes a lot of work, at least for me sometimes. So, and that platform to me is really different than Twitter or Facebook. That's more image directed. Then Twitter for me they're not mega long posts, except for if someone does a thread and links it, which I think for me, kind of not one to read long stuff. It's good that way. I follow some various people and perspectives that I would like to think it helps me. But also I find there that I can find a lot of information, local, regional, national, even global, very quickly, before any like broadcasted media or news media, that kind of stuff, or just information. You can, check that stuff real quick if I don't want to Google it or whatever. So that's my take.
Yeah. For me, Instagram or not Instagram, but Twitter has really replaced any kind of a news source, which that may not be good, except, I mean, I try to have good follows as far as I try to follow a variety of news outlets. And I've seen other people's just kind of advice on how to follow some good sources. I mean, with this whole movement of fake media, fake news or whatever,
Right.
and things being called into question, it is hard to know. It is hard to know what's reliable sometimes. So that's why I'm trying to follow a broad variety of things, except Twitter gets to decide which ones come up in my feed. So
Right.
I'm not
Right.
always seeing everything.
Right.
But for me, that's one reason why Twitter is more time. I spend more time there is because I'm getting a lot of information from there. I'm much more of a consumer on Twitter than I am probably on the other platforms. Facebook is more of a connecting point for people who I have a relationship with, I would say. And we'll talk about this more, but the way I use it is I try to spark conversations, but also just to see what people are talking about. And then Instagram for me is just fun. Like that's all Instagram is for me. It's just fun to see people's pictures and, the things they care about, put up some things that I care about, celebrate. My wife just won a big volleyball tournament. So I put a bunch of pictures up of that. I just felt like it was fun. That one's really lighthearted for me. The other two can get pretty heavy if I'm not careful. So well, I mentioned that I'm more of a consumer on Twitter than I'm a producer. How do you view your different platforms? So is social media a platform for you to convey a message, or are you more of a consumer of information?
I see all three of them as platforms to convey a message. However, of the three, probably Facebook is the one where I'm the most contributive that people are watching. I'm really not stirring the pot much on Facebook. From time to time I used to do it more. I'll put some more, I don't know if someone would say controversial or more raw thoughts or less. I know on Facebook I have to be really measured and think through what I'm posting. I'm much more quick to fire things off on Twitter. It's sometimes Twitter is my therapist. but also just try to share certain things there. I know there's certain people that follow that gain some value in certain insights or experiences, put it that way. Facebook, because I do a lot of stuff through church, whether people are following me personally or following the church's Facebook page, there's a lot of information getting out there with stuff. So especially through the pandemic, that really increased my time content-wise on Facebook. So whether that is information on what's happening or not happening, we live Facebook Live our services. Now I try to be interactive during a part of that with the people that are there. Sometimes, especially during the first spring through early part of summer, there was a lot of, I did a lot of Facebook Live videos where I was speaking or did, a Bible study or something like that. So that end is what's there. Instagram, it depends what of my Instagram accounts I'm doing, whether it's a church or the garden one or my personal one. Sometimes I share through both the same stuff. So yeah.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but if you're loving this episode and you want to access any past episodes or show notes or more content, Visit our website, www.transformation58.com/podcast. Okay, get back to the show.
I want to talk about kind of like a philosophy of engaging social media well. And part of the reason this has come up is because fairly recently, several people have told me or said to people near me, like they mentioned my presence on social media. And thankfully, most of it's good. It seems like they probably wouldn't have said it to me if it was bad. But you know what I mean? It does have me thinking about like the responsibility. Because sometimes I think that we can forget that people are watching. Because it's just part of our day. It's a routine. It's a rhythm.
Right.
Like you said, like you'll just maybe fire something off at Twitter. And I can do that too. And I kind of forget, oh man, like there's a lot of people that could see this. I don't have a huge following. I'm not some kind of like influencer or anything like that, but people have said they're watching me. And so it makes me think like, okay, how am I presenting myself? How am I engaging well? So do you have a philosophy of engaging social media well and in good faith?
So now you're digging in stuff. Yes, like even as you were saying about firing off on Twitter, I have even in the last year and even more so last 6 months have been even more thoughtful in the knee-jerk reaction on Twitter. Like try to be very careful in that it's not something that's just emotive that would change the content in such a way that I got to go back and apologize for. I remember it was probably a year or two ago, I posted something on Facebook and I quoted a guy, interaction with a guy on the street here at the church. And I got a phone call from a pastor that's a mentor of mine and was asking about it. He didn't tell me to take it down. He was processing with me if I considered the ramifications of how it would impact other people, the quoted content. I understood where he was coming from, and I ended up taking it down or editing it to edit out the explicit language that was there. It left me with some more questions, though, in terms of how that philosophy gets applied, and maybe it's something we'll get into later because I know you mentioned about discipleship and social media, and something I know we have discussed probably at length at different times. So yeah, I try to be very like, is this going to be beneficial? That's one. Is it true? And sometimes, there's certain things where, like just this past week, I was having conversations with my daughter. She's 16. She sends me all these TikTok videos and stuff, and it drives me crazy. I'm feeling old right now, man. So, that's her social media like thing. And she's very passionate about social justice and that side of things. I don't know where she gets that from.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
It can't possibly come from me. Yeah, right. But she's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And so my question with her is, how do you know that's true? What are the sources? I'm trying to teach her like how to figure out what is the motivation of whoever put that content in that platform. There's certain things for me that particularly on Facebook, because Facebook is of people who are following me, friending me, however you call that. That's the most diverse. Like I've got from the political perspective all over the map, racially, culturally, very diverse. From people from my church, from other churches that I grew up in. So you got all that mix of people. So sometimes I will, or I have posted things, particularly for those that don't live in my context now, particularly white evangelical or conservative, like where I grew up. Something to maybe start a conversation or cause someone to think about something. So that's one. There would be another context of sometimes I am particularly posting for my church audience, for people who are following me that are affiliated in one way or the other with the church. As I'm wearing a pastor's hat. So what is a pastor of my church saying on XYZ thing? That is something that I carry pretty heavily. Another thing that I carry pretty heavily is, as a white male who has a white evangelical background, is what am I saying or thinking or processing given certain issues, maybe social justice, issues of race, issues of economic, maybe sometimes bordering into politics, about a demographic of people who aren't like how I was raised, whether they be Black or Latino or of a poor demographic, what have you, urban versus rural context, that kind of thing. So those things come in my mind.
A couple of things that I thought about that I try to do. I don't have like an overarching philosophy of my social media engagement, but a couple of things that I try to do. One is ask a lot of questions. And I've learned that over the years from friends who have just taught me, like, you can learn a lot more by asking great questions and then just listening, rather than trying to just put your opinion out there and invite a debate. It's more like show some curiosity and then really listen to what people have to say. So that's one way. That's one thing I try to do. I try to never tell people. I haven't always succeeded at this, but I try not to just flat out tell people you're wrong. And the times that I've done it, I've actually prefaced it and I've said, I don't normally do this, but this time I think you're wrong. Because I recognize it's not my place normally to tell somebody they're wrong. We can talk about it and we can disagree, but I'm not the ultimate authority. And there are some issues are exceptions where I can say, look, no, I know that this is a fact and you're wrong, but I try not to do that very often because that kills the conversation. And my goal, especially on Facebook, like you talked about, that's my most diverse group of people too, on all the platforms. And those are the people who I have more real life interpersonal relationships with than the other platforms as well. Maybe not Instagram, but Instagram is not great for conversation. But so on Facebook, I really want to foster conversations. And I don't always do it perfectly well. And sometimes I throw stuff out there to just kind of like stir the pot a little bit. But ultimately, like, I'm hoping that there'll be a conversation that comes out of this. And I've had a lot of people just kind of say, this isn't a good place for conversation. And I get that, but I still have this hope and this, like, I don't know, like, it's happened enough for me that conversations have happened, or at least have started on Facebook in the comments of a post, that then turn into like real life conversations, maybe face to face in the same room, maybe text messaging, maybe direct messaging, whatever it is. But like this is our new language. Like, one of our new ways of communicating is digitally. And so I consider those things like real conversations. Obviously face to face is better, but yeah, what are you going to say?
I was going to ask you a question because I'm curious. Is there a certain demographic that is telling you Facebook is not a good place for a conversation?
I would say
age range.
Yeah, mostly older people probably.
Okay.
But it's come from a pretty broad perspective of people, like maybe people who aren't as active on social media and aren't as used to engaging in those kind of conversations, because the conversations can get difficult.
Yeah.
They can get deep. They can get confusing. They can get spiteful if you're not careful.
No,
Yeah, I
no,
know it's
no.
hard to believe. It's hard to believe, but I mean, I always try. If it starts trending that way, I try to steer things back to be like, look,
Right.
we're having a good conversation. Let's not ruin it with just being petty, because that will kill things, and then it becomes your stereotypical, social media conversation that doesn't go anywhere. But I just have this hope in me that like we're all on these platforms, and we should be able to use it for good. So what ways have you seen that you can use it for good?
So before answering that question, it prompted a question, not a question, a thought of mine to something I try to do both in person and online too, is in some of those challenging conversations is fight assuming certain things by the words people put on there, or even caps lock. Caps lock is hard because sometimes there's intention there, but I try to follow up with questions like, help me understand, break that down a little bit so I understand what you're trying to say. Are you saying, is this your perspective? Help me understand that. That's helped me try to understand someone who I didn't think was really clear, or if I felt that maybe they were just knee-jerk and didn't think through their answers or their conversation well. And I also tried to, as you were saying, trying to encourage conversation, like I don't know if it's a pat on the back. I know for me, when someone asks me a question, hey, break that down for me. What do you mean by that? It helps open me up to clarify, because sometimes I say stuff that doesn't make any sense or could be taken way out of intent or context. So yeah, and I'm with you, Dan. I've heard people say that, man, social media is not a good place for a conversation or that kind of thing. And part of me wants to say that's baloney, because you're on it all the time. Like XYZ person. Certain people who are just posting dog pictures and their family get-togethers, and that's all they do. Hey, I can kind of understand that. But for people who are engaged, like they're always on their phone with stuff, sometimes I wonder if that's a cop-out. Like I struggle with that, because I get like, if we could Zoom or FaceTime talk, that's better than, just text talk. And really face-to-face, sitting down with you in the same space is even better yet. However, like so much of our life is digital now, better or worse. Like I'm there with you. Like I'm hoping that we could be mature, that we can grow in our ability to communicate well through words. Or, I even, like, early on told people, use emojis as part of your communication. Like, so even like I've had private conversations or like small group conversations with people, say from the church, that I knew that the content of which I was speaking could be taken like I'm being mad at them. So one, I slow down. Two, if it's a heavy topic and I have to put it out in a text format, like a Facebook Messenger, we use that a lot in our church. I will allow my wife to read it and give input. Like, no, like she's nixed an entire post that I was going to share. She's like, that's either too long, or that's too raw, or you sound really mad. Or if it's something that does go out, I'll put like a smiley face emoji, so that to try to communicate what my face is doing as I'm communicating that. Again, like as I'm saying this, I'm hearing pastors that I know who would say, man, we need to sit down so we can see your face and hear the tone of your voice. Which I'm there. That makes sense to me. However, I also know that we can't always sit down and hear and see each other. And in a time where we're engaging in that digital media, I think we could learn to be mature in how we do that. I forget your question, man.
You kind of answered that. It was basically like, how can we use it for good?
Okay.
How can we use these platforms for good?
So here's one thing. As you were talking, it hit me. It was something that earlier this year, maybe even it hit me. This year has been super heavy, like heavy content, heavy laments, heavy wrestles with anything from school to weather to everything is just super heavy. And, you know, I had tons of heavy posts. And then it kind of hit me. It's like, you need to not just do heavy stuff, but also stuff that this is celebratory. You were talking about your wife winning the national championship. Congrats, by the way. Like that kind of stuff, that can also help, I think, your engagement on any given platform. So it's not just one. You don't want to be the grump on a given platform, or, you know, it's just a diversity of stuff. I think you started to go there, is when conversations go kind of left, not left politically, but they're just not going in the right direction, is I think it can be helpful as, I don't know if you call it a moderator, but just kind of steering people graciously back. Or I've noticed, I've read it in your posts, I've tried to do it myself, is really praise the collective audience for being mature in dealing with a heavy topic, or try to embrace different perspectives, even if I disagree with them. Like, thanks for weighing in like that. I think that's important as we use things for good. So, you know, there's so many different ways, like social media can be such a tool from anything from information to entertainment to just kind of allowing us to breathe or kind of lament a little bit or mourn certain things, to, like, in the church world, evangelize, get message out, challenge, like all those different things.
I just wanted to pause right here and say thank you. Thank you for joining us and being here with us on the We All Need Each Other podcast. If you want to support us, please don't hesitate to stop by our website, www.transformation58.com/give. Thanks. We all need each other.
You recently watched the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma. What are some thoughts about that?
So you suggested it to me, and as I started watching it, I was like, man, this is super heavy. I really need to digest it. So I broke it up into several different watchings. So one of the things that hit me is like, this is scary. Like, this is not like scary, but the impact, the influence, and the manipulative way that social media works, and like the algorithms and the way things are monetized and set up, it's pretty intense. And then part of me was like, okay, I'm filtering, okay, is this information accurate? Let me some is you're trusting in this docu-film that they're giving you accurate things, but you know, they're giving the people who are talking and giving their qualifications, what they've done, and then you know, you're putting trust in what they're saying is who they are. But that aside, you know, you got people that worked on the inside of these big platforms, and they're saying how manipulative potentially it can be. What struck me was a couple things. One, it seemed like all of them had hope with it, that there was hope that it could be a tool to be utilized well. There seemed to be unanimous thought that without guidelines, in the church world, we would say discipleship, that it's going to run amok, and it has. That I heard several times that truth is not found in the social media platform in the digital world, like that the computers and all that kind of stuff can't develop truth. That is something outside of that realm, which I found really interesting from a like apologetics side of things. Right away, it came to my mind, and you should know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The perspective of having a relationship with God as a foundation of what is true. I thought of, as I was watching it, I thought of people across age brackets that seem to have really fallen into this world of social media craziness. Like, it's, part of me says, like, man, these people might have always been this way, or part of me says they've changed. Like social media is discipling them, not the other way around. Like they are being really influenced to some people in a good way, and they're growing in, maturity as a person, maturity in, different disciplines of life or spiritually. And there's a lot of people that slip the other way and don't really see it. Like the guy with the dreadlocks that was really soft spoken, he talked about how just the aim is to change just a little bit over a long period of time. Like his perspective was really interesting to me. And one last thing I thought, and I told my wife this, I said, all these big tech guys who were involved in these platforms, none of them would allow their children to be involved on it, that's super, super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something to think about. I mean, we both, you and I both got teenage kids, and yeah, it was a lot for me to think about. And we'll start this as kind of like our closing statement, our closing section of this conversation. But I want to say a couple things. One is that, as we're talking and we're sharing our thoughts and our perspectives and our opinions, I want to make it clear to anybody who ends up watching this or listening to this that I'm not trying to come from a place of authority or expert status. I'm trying to figure this thing out. And if you are one of those people who sees what I put on social media, that I'm not perfect. But I'm trying to do it well. I'm trying to engage in a way that honors people and honors God. And then with the Social Dilemma documentary, it's made me hyper aware of what's popping up in my feed, and making me question, like, why did that come up? Why did that person come up? Why is that person coming up? Why is that ad showing up? Because it's not just this random flow of information. There are things behind this, because those are companies that are trying to make money, and they make money by keeping you attached, keeping your eyes focused longer, giving you what you want to see so you'll stay around longer. So that's another thing too, is as I'm, I kind of have this daily routine that I go through. I say it's me like catching up on the news of the day, but a lot of times it's just, let's be honest, it's like entertainment. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it makes me more aware of how much time I'm spending doing that. and which messages I'll give a click to, or I'll give a like or a retweet or whatever. And the guy with the dreadlocks that you're talking about, the one thing that he said at the end, and it's like the smallest, most practical little thing. He's like, never watch one of the videos that's suggested for you on YouTube. You always take the time to decide what videos you want to watch. And that's specific to YouTube, but it also can be specific to other platforms. And we can decide who we want to follow. We can decide, whose posts am I going to like open up all the way so I can see, or what threads am I going to explore? And we can take a little bit of control of what we're seeing and what we're doing. And I think that's, as we talk about discipleship, and as we talk about honoring God, as we talk about just being a good presence on social media, I think we have to remember that we're in control and we can make these choices. And we have to be intentional about those choices. Just like any other aspect of life, it feels different, but in a lot of ways it's the same. Like I can choose whether I drive recklessly or not today. I can choose how I speak to people today. I can even choose whether I believe my first instinct about people or whether I dig a little deeper when I meet someone. Those are all choices I can make. Sometimes it feels like it's just like I'm just kind of like this, I'm kind of a victim of time and assumptions and culture and everything else, but we're not. We've got the ability to make these decisions, and that should apply to social media as well. So what's your closing statement about social media?
Good points, Dan. One of the things that was really encouraging and challenging for me watching you on social media was what you displayed, at least what I could read or view on social media as a stance of humility. So at various times you have said, you have apologized, you have removed a post, you have shut down contentious conversations, probably at the hindrance of traffic to your given profile, right? I think those are mature and wise things as we engage in social media, that we approach it, like, as you said, we don't know it all. We could be wrong about something, and to have a measure of humility. And I think this is something that I'm hopeful for, as myself and for others, is if we have said something that is wrong or hurtful or destructive in our given platforms, that we take accountability for that and be willing to own up to that and say, you know what, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to remove this, even if it's got traffic like crazy, even if it makes us popular and gets something trending. Like that shouldn't be our goal. And in fact, that was even a message within that documentary, that just getting the trends shouldn't be the goal of what is there. Like there should be accountability for it. I think there's tremendous value in the platform to do tremendous good. I think there's some practical things that we can do in disciplining ourselves. For myself, what I've tried to do when I've sat with somebody is take my phone when I'm there, turn it over so I'm not seeing the notifications pop up and distract me, and definitely silence my phone. Or even turn it off so the zzz isn't there, because it's distracting even for me. For my family, one of the things that we try to do is when we're having dinner together is devices are not at the table. So not only not ringing, but not at the table, so that we can connect and do that face to face.
Really good stuff. I appreciate you doing this with me, and
Sir.
Yeah, let's do it again sometime.
Yes, sir. Sounds good.